Welcome to Nasdaq TradeTalks, where we meet with the top thought leaders and strategists in emerging technologies, digital assets, the regulatory landscape, and capital markets. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, and joining us this afternoon, we have Manish Sood, founder, chairman, and CEO of Reltio, as well as Susannah Shattuck, head of product at Credo AI. We're here to discuss why organizations need to leverage real-time data intelligence and prioritize data privacy and security. It is great to have the both of you with us. Welcome to Trade Talks. Manish, let's kick it off with you. Let's talk about real-time data, why it matters, not just from the customer user experience, but also as we think about fraud and supply chain management.
Jill, as you think about how the enterprises are moving and the speed at which they need to execute, everything from a business operations standpoint needs to move at a faster rate and pace. And this is where everybody is trying to leverage AI as well in that stream of business. And when you think about fraud scenarios, identifying whether it's a fraudulent identity that is being used in the line of a transaction or any kind of a business process that needs to be completed, or even from a customer experience and engagement standpoint, the ability to decide and make sure that you're delivering the right experience at the point of engagement, not 30 seconds later, not 30 minutes later, but at the point of engagement is becoming extremely vital and necessary for every business to tackle. And that's where they're looking at the speed at which they can engage with businesses across all these different factors.
Yeah, and Susannah, just adds to the complexity of data management for organizations.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we all probably saw the MIT study that showed that most generative AI projects in the enterprise are failing. I think that's a data problem, not an AI problem. The AI systems that we're trying to adopt are only as good as the real-time data we give them access to. So if we don't solve that gap and we don't have the pipelines that are secure and ready for AI use, our AI projects are going to fail to deliver ROI.
Yeah, and that's a good point that the study had made. So Manish, when you think about transforming the organization, leveraging these emerging technologies such as AI, how should they be thinking about how they're managing their data? Because it's only, to Susannah's point, data in, data out, it's only as good as the data infrastructure.
That's absolutely critical and necessary for every business to think about. And all the AI capabilities that everybody's trying to leverage, they come informed with the external world type of knowledge and information. But for every business to be able to benefit from those capabilities, they have to bring together their data as an ingredient into that mix. And this is where leveraging AI or large language models in conjunction with your business data is critical and important. But if you look at the current state of the industry, there are so many different silos of information. There are so many different applications that they have put to work that trying to figure it out on a real-time basis as to which is the right piece of information, is it trustworthy or not, has become the major hurdle or friction point across these enterprises. And this is where capabilities like Reltio's are coming in and solving for that problem by synthesizing all of this information into a trusted, unified layer of context that these AI models can be informed with, so that these decision-making capabilities can be more precise and can provide an authoritative answer rather than providing, all the erroneous answers that most of these organizations seem to be struggling with right now.
Yeah. So Susannah, really a big part of the challenges is integrating or upgrading legacy data systems.
Yeah. And when we think about adopting agents, right, the buzzword of the moment in the AI and enterprise ecosystem, we need to figure out how to give access to that critical context, that data that's necessary for the agents to make the right decisions, to take the right actions. And a lot of that data lives in legacy systems that are not exactly agent friendly. So we see that a lot of enterprises are struggling to upgrade their legacy data infrastructure to have the inputs and the integration points that agents can actually use to access that context in real time. And a lot of enterprises are trying to figure out how to take their data out of these legacy systems and put them into dedicated context layers. That word context is really important. You're hearing Manish and me use that quite a bit. Context is how you actually tell an AI system what it needs to know to make the right decisions for your business, for your particular use case. And legacy AI, legacy data systems were not really developed with this kind of AI use case in mind.
Yeah. So Manish, is this when you talk about data debt and how it's the silent killer of innovation?
It's data debt is a real and a massive problem right now for enterprises, and primarily because of what Susanna just mentioned, that previous generation systems were not built to work with these kinds of capabilities in real time. And the benefit of AI is this ability to do the cause and effect correlation, do it in a very short time frame, and almost at a near real time or a real time type of a context. But if you're not able to plug in your data in the right manner, can you get to that outcome or not? And that's the biggest question that everybody's struggling with, because that's where the data debt comes into play. So, how do you put together the systems and the capabilities that are able to plug trustworthy data that is actionable and ready for conclusions to be driven out of in this fast moving enterprise environment with the capabilities that AI provides us. But our ability to leverage those capabilities is being held back by this data debt.
Yeah, but Manish, I think it's also, and you alluded to this before, that if the organization is still going to remain in a siloed ecosystem, it's never going to improve no matter what kind of emerging technologies that you apply. It'll just be inconsistent unless you get out of this siloed mindset.
Absolutely. And that's why, the way we have looked at the picture and not just the previous landscape, but how we need to evolve moving forward is going from this application first architecture mindset to a data first architecture mindset, where everything that was defined before was driven by the particular application that you wanted to bring in. They had their own architecture, data models, the data that they needed to service or run their business processes on, versus now we're moving to a paradigm where across all these different applications, we need the same agentic AI capabilities running and delivering outcomes. But in order to facilitate that, you have to start thinking about what is the data first architecture that you're putting into place. And that is where, Susanna, you mentioned this notion of a semantic layer that needs to be defined, that is by design tackling the problem of unifying information from different silos into a more coherent and organized view of the enterprise landscape.
Yeah, Suzanne, I was thinking of the same thing too with the study that you had cited by MIT. Unless it's business intentional and there's problems that you are looking to solve and not creating for solutions for problems that don't exist, it's almost, you don't want to get in the way of your own strategy or your own goals.
Totally. And, I think we're talking a lot about the power of consolidating all of your enterprise data into a semantic layer, into this data first architecture. But I think we also have to acknowledge that there's some pretty significant risks that come with that. Yeah. We're talking about making our most valuable enterprise data accessible by AI systems. And those AI systems have the ability to be attacked. Those AI systems have the ability to make mistakes. And so we think about data governance and actually maintaining control over when, where, and how that data can be accessed by both humans and AI as a really critical piece. If you're putting all of your most valuable customer data, your most valuable predictive insights into this kind of semantic layer, you also need to make sure that you're protecting against the security, privacy, and just otherwise sort of performance risks that come with leveraging AI in contact with that data.
Yeah. And Susanna, I would also argue that it's not a set it and forget it type of policy. This is something that evolves as the threat surface and the environment evolves.
Yeah. And the threat surface is evolving all the time. I think one of the biggest challenges that enterprises face is that the technology is moving so quickly. Right. The model capabilities are moving so quickly that it's really difficult to keep pace with not just the risk surface, but also the capability surface. And so if you aren't continually evaluating both what is possible with the technology, but also what is potentially going to go wrong with this technology, you really are exposing yourself to pretty significant enterprise risk.
Yeah. Manish, do you think that companies, because the landscape is so competitive, whether it was an internal facing or external facing product, do you think that there, let's call it over the past 2 to 3 years, it was almost a rush to get some sort of product to the landscape, and perhaps all these risk scenarios were not either tested or modeled out?
They were definitely not all modeled out because this has been a very fast evolving landscape, and that is why this has to be a continuous evolution as we move forward. And that's also the reason why governance has to play an extremely important role as we move forward. This has to go hand in hand. This will the pace at which we are evolving the AI capabilities, especially the agentic capabilities deployed inside the enterprise, that will require us to focus more and more on the not just governance from a human actor perspective, but also from the digital actor perspective, because we are trying to bring now a new class of workers into the workforce. Every workforce is looking at a combination of human and digital workers that they can deploy and scale with at a very fast rate and pace.
Yeah, but I also think too, not only just designing and modeling out with a privacy and cybersecurity first mindset, I think it's at the point where it has to be from the top down, a cultural mindset where you operate with governance, privacy, and cybersecurity with every strategy you put forth, regardless of what part of the business.
They have to be first principles of how we operate with this kind of a mindset.
Oh, for sure. And Suzanne, I'd like to get your thoughts on that as well, regardless of your business unit or what you're in. If
Yeah.
moving forward, and to your point, the surface is just expanding exponentially.
Yeah, we talk about shifting left governance. And when we say that, we mean that governance needs to be something that you're doing from the very beginning of any initiative or project. It's not, a checkpoint at the end of the project right before you put something into production. And a big part of that is empowering your teams across the business, not just the technical AI teams or the data management teams, but literally every single team to be able to assess the risks of a particular project when it comes to leveraging data and AI, to be able to make decisions that are designed to mitigate that risk. So in many ways, this is an education problem. This is an enablement problem because we're seeing more and more that generative AI, agentic AI, is becoming democratized. It's becoming possible for non-technical people to build and put into production agents using these no-code, low-code tools. And if you're not giving your marketing team, your sales team, your customer success team the tools to make the right decisions as they're building these agents, then they are going to be exposing your organization to risk. So I really do like that shift left approach and thinking about this problem of governance of data and AI no longer as just a technical stakeholder problem or a legal and compliance team problem, but a problem for the entire enterprise.
Yeah, those are all excellent points. And Manish, to wrap up here, it's not simply just checking the box to say that you are within regulatory compliance, your industry compliance. I think it's going to be part of how successful you are within your peer group and leading the competitive landscape to show that your products are designed and your company is within the same mindset of thinking privacy and cyber first. I think it's going to really be what's going to distinguish yourself or the company within the competitive landscape.
Absolutely, and this is no longer just going to be about following, what is defined as the part of the regulatory landscape, but how you're leading the thought process and how you're going to protect the information and make use of it at the same time, because this is where the pace of innovation is extremely fast right now. And we will see more and more of these examples come to life where both of this has to be solved for by the product companies as they're bringing new features, new capabilities to life, but also the controls that they can provide to the customers so that they can better manage and monitor the ability to control the perimeter around these areas.
All right. Appreciate both of your insights. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.